He was featuring at NA Harness Update and our special guest, who I just remember his Twitter handle because he's one of my favorite people on Twitter, mainly because he follows me. I like everyone that follows me on Twitter. Which, therefore, if you want me to like you, please follow me on Twitter. Welcome, everybody.
Is that like 12 people?
Mike, if you round up, I have 8 million followers. You just have to round up a lot.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Often Pacing Live Show. I am your host, Drew Carey. I was trying to think of a different daytime talk show host, but he hosts The Price is Right. That's kind of close to a daytime talk show. And with me, not like always, but as whenever he can and time permits, Mr. Michael J. Prebozy. How's it going, Mikey?
Oh, it's going.
That's going. It should be going because time never stops. It's like the great poet Cage the Elephant once said, "There ain't no rest for the wicked." I forget the rest of that chorus. But then it goes, "I got bills to pay, I got mouths to feed, something, something, something," and then the rest of the album sounds exactly like that. Now,
That's hitting home pretty hard.
we, as in not only Mike and I, but those of you at home listening, have a special guest that will be joining us as soon as I hit the call button. You know him as a horseman, a driver, man, person. He is driving tonight at Pocono Downs, but not at the moment because it is not recommended that you text and drive, especially if what you're driving are equine athletes. Joining me as soon as the ringing stops. I said as soon as the ringing stops. There he is, Mr. Marcus
Hello?
Miller. Marcus, how's it going, man?
Hey, good.
It's going all right. Now, you had me scared for a second there because I was leading in, and I was like, there was this one moment where I thought, I may get a telemarketer. And then this would just turn into why everyone should buy into Life Alert. Even though, I don't think the racing audience is that old anymore. I think we're starting to get to some of the kids.
Yeah, I think so, right?
Especially with what's going on right now. We got this new hit mobile app with thousands of users on Apple, on Android, and no other phones, because those are the only two that really exist. Capitalism's really working there.
Just iPhone as far as I'm concerned.
That's because you only have an iPhone. Me, being the nerd I am, I have 6 phones, and only 5 of them are tracked by the government. So...
Interesting. I don't think you should say that on air.
Well, they're listening anyway. So Marcus, I like to think of you as one of the horsemen that has one of the better senses of humor, and I'm not saying that just because you follow me on Twitter. But I know
I even occasionally like some of your tweets.
Occasionally is probably the rate you should be liking them. But I also know that too because you're a big fan of Jim Norton, right?
Oh, huge fan.
And this is the weird thing. I totally forgot about this broadcast. And earlier today, I like to listen to You Made It Weird. It's a Pete Holmes podcast. I listened to that episode. Later in the day, I watched his Netflix special. And man, why didn't you tell me about him sooner?
I actually saw that when he was touring that special. I saw it in Philly. It was better live, if you can even believe that. I'm a super fan. I'm a nerd for him.
And that means something completely different if you know what he talks about. But
yeah, right. I shouldn't admit that either.
that leads into my next point. Where do I rank on these Twitter accounts? Where do I rank on all Twitter accounts?
How about this? As far as surprises go, probably in the top 1%.
Yes! For those of you who are even wondering why I'm mentioning this on a Periscope about Often Pacing Live, it's not only because I'm a total narcissist, but also to show why these guys have the best in the game running this broadcast at the moment. Also getting the best guests, because Marcus, you're one of the best drivers out here on the East Coast. And that's just not me saying that. I've heard 6 other people say that, whose names I don't think I should drop on the air, but trust me, there are people out there. And...
Well, thank you.
That sounded very heartfelt, and I appreciate that as much as you
I
probably
like
appreciate
you too,
that.
even though you don't even know I'm here, but I'm here too.
Yeah, we have Michael J. Prebozy, who you may not know as a horse player. He's with us too. He enjoys you. But
Oh, good.
what I like to do is I like to really dig into the people that come on, because we have these drivers that you just scroll through on the game, and we sometimes forget that these are actual drivers in the actual sport of harness racing. This isn't just something that a bunch of aristocratic elites came up with in a boardroom, you know? So I also know you're like, what, a third generation horseman? Because your dad's Irv Miller.
Correct.
So that would,
And my grandpa actually was Amish his whole life, but he did breed some standardbreds.
okay. So then,
So I guess that would make me third generation.
oh, that was such a lucky guess. That's like the best guess to go for, even though Jim Norton says you should always overguess. But, but since your dad was he was always a horse trainer, was he not? He always trained standardbreds.
Yeah, pretty much. My whole life, anyway. When he was 16, he started working at Lincoln Land Farms, which is famous for the Fox Valley horses in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And then he worked on the racing side of that pretty quickly, and then branched out on his own when he was still fairly young. So yeah, I would say basically his whole life.
So then you come into the equation, whether on purpose or not. I don't want to get into that. That's for a whole nother time. But so then when were you first exposed to harness racing?
Oh, I remember being a little kid and like running around the outside fence of county fairs before I even understood what was going on. That was just part of life. Was you go to the races all summer long. So as far as I can remember.
And you could never beat the horses. That's because you were on the far outside. You were not racing them at the inside.
Right, 4 wide.
So you grew up around horses. Your dad trains horses. At what point then do you start to realize that this could actually be a career for me?
You know what? I kind of got tricked. I was about 12 years old, and I was in Florida. That my dad's barn was down there. It was like the second or third year that he shipped his babies to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked. I didn't care much about like going to the barn and stuff before that, but it was the last day we were down there, and somehow he got me to go to the barn, and I ended up jogging a couple horses that day. I think my very first one like ran off with me and almost got loose. Like I learned real quickly to stay on the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up jogging a bunch of horses that day and got hooked. So I got back to Illinois, went to school. Like winter break was over, went to school, and then on Saturday I went out to the barn and spent the next 3 years cleaning salt.
Now, when you said you got tricked, did your dad say like we were going to the zoo and then he took you to the barn?
No, he let me jog, so I got hooked. That's the fun part, on the racetrack. And then when I got home, I was a stall cleaner and jog cart washer until I was like 16 years old.
So now you got kind of the fever, and it's not the one that you can cure with cowbell. I think we're all sick of that one too. We need a cure for that. But you start,
right.
Then you're cleaning you're cleaning horses, you're cleaning horse stalls, you're cleaning jog carts. When you first start driving, what, 18? Like usual people just start driving 18?
Well, I actually did some county fair amateur races.
Okay.
When I was 15, I drove a few of those, and then when I turned 16, I got my fair license. So I did county fairs from 16 to 18, or really 19. And
then you start catch driving around that time too. But then you also were an interesting story, because I know you were in Illinois basically because you were getting your degree in marine biology, was it?
No.
Oh.
No.
For some reason that's what's in my head. I thought you wanted to swim with the whales.
Yeah, I wonder how you heard about that. I always, when I was a kid, I always said I wanted to be a marine biologist when I grew up, but I never actually pursued that. But I grew up in Illinois, so I went to Eastern Illinois University, which is downstate, and then I transferred to DePaul because basically my sophomore year, I kind of caught on in Chicago and became a catch driver that year. And I wanted to be closer to the racetracks, Balmoral Park and Maywood Park. Mm-hmm. And then by halfway through my junior year, I was racing so much I couldn't dedicate myself to school enough full time to make both things, work. So that's why I decided to drop out.
That's a shame too, because the whales are very lonely this time of year.
I know, I would have been a great marine biologist had I stuck it out.
Well, I mean, horses
but
can
actually, I went to college for marketing was my major.
Oh, really?
I didn't really love that.
Then I don't understand how I knew about your childhood dream on just a mere guess.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. I mean, I've had like saltwater fish tanks and stuff. Maybe you saw that on Instagram.
I honestly, I think I am just contacting you at a higher consciousness. This is like
podcast goes deep.
This is some of that Alan Watts stuff that he's been talking about. But
this is way better than any of the other ones he's ever done too. So I have to tell you.
Yeah, he has to tell you that and ruin the flow of the interview.
Who has to tell me what? I'm having a hard time hearing him.
Oh, he was just saying this is one of my better interviews, and I, of course, had to be flattered, but then turn it down because, you know, my narcissism can only go so high. So then you decide to leave Illinois in 2014? It was somewhere around then.
2013, I
that one. Yeah, because you drove when the new grandstand was in at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, I was there for the very end of the old grandstand.
So
that was pretty cool. I got to drive one season in front of the old grandstand.
And that I knew for a while too. There were a lot of people going, "When's Marcus going to come out? When's Marcus going to come out here?" Because you were one of the top drivers out in Illinois by that point. So then, what fully prompted you to finally commit to moving to the East Coast?
Well, I kind of saw the beginning of the end coming in Chicago, and I kind of done everything there that I had wanted to. You know, I was the leading driver. I won, you know, our big stake races on Super Night, and I felt confident enough that I was at the point where I could make the move and be successful. And I just kind of I felt like I didn't want to do it halfway, so I just committed. I for one winter I was going back and forth just on the weekends, and then when spring rolled around and the babies were getting ready to qualify, I just committed. I moved and I actually bought a house, so that way I didn't have the option to go back if things started going wrong. I was forced to stay.
And then all you got is this house, and the equity is going to go down. And then I'm getting way. I don't know where I was going with that. In all honesty, yeah. I've been down in this giant cup of coffee, and it's now just starting to kick in. So
there you go.
You've been out here for a couple years, and it seems you grab your bootstraps pretty easily, pretty quickly. You're racing everywhere on the East Coast. You're at Tioga, you're at Meadowlands, you're at Pocono. You're at Pocono tonight, actually. So I hope I'm not like causing you to crash on your way over there.
No, I actually just got here, but I think there's like 40 drivers at Pocono tonight because the PA All-Star, so I don't start till way late.
So then how do you, because you're also on that circuit where you go to Philly, then you go to another track at night, so what really keeps you going day in, day out to race that often and race that much?
Coffee helps.
It sure does.
You know, it's a lot this thrill of winning, but it's also how I pay my bills, so, you know, I've got that mortgage, I gotta keep working. That's kind of my theory.
So then what's the future look like for Marcus Miller? Is there anything that you're really looking to branch out to? Maybe another house or something within horse racing?
You know, I think we have a lot of nice 2-year-olds this year, so I'm just hoping I can kind of expand on last year. You know, like Lexington was a big meet for me, and then that led into like the kindergarten finals and the Breeders' Crown. So if I can just maybe get that ball rolling a little sooner than last year and be having a good summer going into Lexington instead of just coming out of it, that would be good.
Well, just remember, Marcus, I somehow helped you get there. You might not know how, but somehow I did. Now, now, finally, before I let you go for 2 hours of, I don't know, reading like Stephen King novels before you have to go drive horses, this game, Off and Pacing, it definitely changed a lot of the social aspects of horse racing, because I know on Twitter usually everything was just met with vitriol, and it was a very hostile environment, especially for horse players, because everything is just wrong. But then you get this game that comes around, and you have this sudden twist where everyone is putting a positive spin on racing. And I think that's one of the more interesting things to come out of this game. But is there anything you've noticed as a driver among horsemen, most likely who play this game, that's really been coming from its existence?
I think it's amazing how many people are playing it. I mean, you see all the time, like, in between races, people are checking their stable, and I think it's so funny because we all, like, at the track anyway, we're all there racing our real horses and then talking about our fake ones. I think it's really funny. But I love how they're keeping it, like, as realistic as a fantasy horse racing game can be. Like, they're not dumbing it down at all. You know, we have the real jargon in the game and everything, but it's simple enough people can figure it out, and then it translates back to real life, I think.
Minus the gambling part, but that's a whole nother step you got to get towards, and that's why I'm here. I'm a gambler at heart. You know this, probably. I don't know.
Right.
You probably know me as a goofball, but yeah, and that's something too I found interesting is how, and that's also the scary thing, and this is why the machines will take over eventually, because I host this broadcast, and I have to I don't have to trick myself into thinking that these are fake horses. They seem real, and I don't know if I should be fearful of that or realize that that's why this game is so good and has such a big impact. I don't know.
I had a strange thought the other day where it just keeps taking off, and then all of a sudden, if you could cash your coins back out, now we're all just racing fake horses for a living.
Yeah, it's not mind-boggling. It's I can't comprehend it. I have no words, or I'm just very caffeinated. I can't really interpret it just yet. But
right.
And I assume
it cracks me up. The other thing that's so realistic is how much people complain about their fake drives.
I was just about to bring that up.
That is on par with real life, because that's the first thing is blame the driver, and boy, do they blame the computer drivers.
Which that should give you some motivation, knowing that you are not as bad as your computer self.
Right.
I mean that jokingly. The AI is as good as it's been in a while. They've been really working hard on often pacing to make it.
I can't imagine how complicated. I mean, to as realistic as they look is remarkable to me, because it looks like a real race right now, and that just blows me away that those guys can figure that out.
Yeah,
there's got to be 20,000 horses. I think, I don't know, probably way more than that racing in the game, and they're all different. You can count on them to be the same week to week. But it's just remarkable to me.
Yeah, and I mean this. I also understand too, as a man who wrote once. There's a sentence coming, trust me. Who once wrote the F word in HTML, and that's the extent of any computer program he could do. I don't understand how, just how any of this can be constructed, and it's just amazing that this is the kind of technology we have nowadays, and we're finally utilizing it as a sport.
Right.
And that I'm not the one in charge of it. Because if I was the one doing it, there would just be F words everywhere. In different color palettes, because I just learned hex.
I'm glad we can flag names now, so that way you get taken down.
I am, of course, only half kidding. Now, we're going to miss the first division of the 6th pace because this interview is just going really well. But, Marcus, I should probably let you go. I hear Stephen King's come out with another great book. Or you're probably only halfway through his first one, because there's like 2,000 pages to sift through. It's like you're reading Atlas Shrugged on a daily basis. Thank you for joining me, Marcus. It's been fun. Make sure you follow me you can retweet everything you can, like everything you can. I'm just trying to plug myself at this point.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Marcus Miller, everybody. Marcus, thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Take care, man.